Hello, my name is Aaron Dunn. I'm the composer of the Silmarillion Symphony. My most recent album, The Fall of Gondolin, is available now on CD, and as of Wednesday, we'll have vinyl ready to ship as well. So make sure you head over to silmarillionSymphony.bandcamp.com, pick all that stuff up. Yes, if you shoot me a message on there, I will respond, especially if you want to get like a CD and a vinyl or some kind of combination package. We can arrange something to that end. But anyway, let's get into the content of this video, which is track number 3 on the album. It is The Way of Escape. This is not a terribly complicated subject. It's just important to the Legendarium. Very simply, this is a pathway that gets you from the rest of Middle-earth, the rest of Beleriand, somehow into Gondolin. There's only one way in the first stage, and that is because they made it that way. And they made it really tricky. I'm looking at the geography right now. I'm using the map off of Encyclopedia of Arda, which is really helpful visually for me. If you type in Way of Escape, Gondolin, into Google, it will pop this up for you as well. But there are 7 gates for Gondolin. They actually lined this secret path that basically allowed you in through the mountains, sort of through this funky path to the Vale of Tumladin and eventually the city of Gondolin. And the perspective musically that I'm looking for here is essentially Tour's sense of awe and wonder at what he's looking at here, because he's going to eventually get to Gondolin, and we see with the Hidden City, which is the next track, that these two kind of go together. They're very or at least they're somewhat similar harmonically. They were originally composed almost to be put smack together. The tempos were so close, particularly so they could be performed together in a live setting. So I didn't record it that way. I'm glad I didn't record it that way for many reasons. One is The Way of Escape is a much more intimate sounding tune, and Hidden City is full orchestra, so we split it up that way. But The Way of Escape was essentially a pathway where if you were an elf so lucky as to find your way into it, you could get to Gondolin that way. This would not be easy. It's described there's a dry river right in front of this pathway, which I would presume you can only see this way of escape if the water is drained away. So it's kind of tricky to find, but that's what it is. And so this bit of the story is very simply just Tour walking through it with Veronwë, and eventually they find Ecthelion, and he marches them the rest of the way. But they find it, and they go to Gondolin. That's basically it. But Tour's sense of awe and wonder is sort of in there with, we added a little bit of harp, which, just to give up the story here, if you haven't looked over the album itself, in the credits, there's credits for classical guitar. That was me. And I'm basically faking kind of a harp sound with it. So very, very little attack in the playing. I don't do the classical guitar fingernail thing. So it's just very as warm and as round a sound as possible to allow that sort of mystical texture to come into the music. And also not having to have a harp in a recording session, which is a consideration for space, time, tuning, takes, mechanical noise, notation challenges, all the rest of it. So, and those notation challenges would probably come from my end because I'm not the greatest at writing harp music. But that's essentially the story there. So The Way of Escape is a secret path that gets you from outside of Gondolin to Gondolin. And of course, through that path, there are 7 gates. They are all guarded, at least for the most part. Later in the story, they're not looking at that as closely anymore, the elves are, and so that ends up biting them in the butt. But yeah, that's practically speaking it. And that's kind of how that pertains to the story. So that's really all I've got to say about that. for today. We're at almost to Christmas now, so Merry Christmas. And make sure to head over to the Bandcamp site to pick up the CD, pick up the music. Again, the digital discography is also really great to pick up as well, where you can get everything I've done for the last 10 years, almost in an anthology fashion. You can really see the progression of the work. And of course, earlier on, I didn't have budget for tons of musicians. And then later on, now I've come to a point where paying for a full orchestra. So that's really exciting for me to actually show that progression. I don't foresee taking any of the older works down. And of course, in the future, I'll be adding to those in various ways, whether that's with Atmos mixes, strings only takes, different arrangements of some of these tunes. Some of these would do well with a rock band. So, and I have a background in electric guitar and bass, so that's still on the table. I'm looking at my pedal board right now and thinking about what I might be able to do there. But I think that'll be all for today. Thank you all very much. I hope to talk to you all again soon. Thanks.